Hey everybody, it's Jillian, and I wasn't planning to go on Facebook Live this morning because, I'm still dealing with my menstruation. I'm feeling definitely a different shift. So you know that prior to me getting my period, because I was under the impression that maybe it wasn't going to happen because it's been like, there was definitely some time in between my last period and when it started. So I was hoping that I was on that amenorrhea trajectory, which great if it happens. And it might, but I know I'm going through a healing symptom in my reproductive system. And you all saw the energy prior to me, like last month. It was totally amazing. Like every single day, I'm just thinking of all these new revelations. I'm awake, I'm on point, everything is great. And I'm hoping that I was going to trigger amenorrhea. And then, bam, my period came. And it was just like, and it wasn't like, it was, yeah, it was a surprise. And it definitely feels like probably the first time I had my period, I'm thinking. Because it definitely is heavier, it's clotting and all this stuff. I know this is kind of gross for some of you who are like, okay, do I really want to hear about Jillian's period and all that stuff? But no, this is an example of hormones that it's an example of how hormones change people. Like literally it changes people. And when, when babies get vaccines or when they eat really, when they're exposed to certain types of foods that have high levels of hormones or hormone mimickers, that baby is changed forever. The personality, the trajectory on which they were going on. I mean, and it's so apparent now because I'm seeing my own personality shift during this menstruation because I'm craving sugar right now on this protocol. I'm eating some sugar. I'm not feeling bloated. I don't have any, constipation. I don't have any, any of the major, I'm probably a bit more tired, so I'm waking up a little bit later. But the biggest change right now that I'm feeling while on my period is the personality change and the cravings of the sugar. And that's a trip. It's a total trip. It's so weird to watch. And I'm just riding this wave right now because I know it's going to end at some point. And I know if I drink a bunch of my juice, which I did yesterday, I drank a bunch of my juice and it made me feel a bit better, yes. But I am noticing what is going on with these hormones and how it affects, me right now. Right now my drive is a little bit lower. My energy is a little bit lower. It's like I'm noticing this significant difference. So that ought to tell you something in the matrix when we do get exposed to all of these high levels of hormones just in, the medical practices, the holistic practices, because when people are taking the supplements or taking hormone replacement therapies, they're eating the meat that has a lot of hormones in it. That right there, it puts people on a very different trajectory. And so, and then of course, hormones being used in IVF. Okay. So it makes sense why we have a lot of criminal behavior in the population because people's hormones are way out of whack. I'm just seeing a slight change being on my period now. Totally like, from night and day from last week to then this weekend. And it's a change. And this is what I was dealing with when I was as far as the energy levels and the personality change. This is what I was dealing with, once a month back when I had premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Right now, I'm seeing mild touches of it, mild glimpses of that personality change. I mean, I'm not like super triggered. I'm not like, what I was 2 or 3 years ago. But even slight changes in your hormones is noticeable. So imagine, when we have a society that is so full of synthetic hormones and so full of pathogens that induce hormones, what that does to a population, what that does to a child, what that does to an adult who's trying to, who's sick and is trying to get better, and then they're being fed hormones or they're being fed pathogens that induce hormones, what that does to people. So if I can see a slight change in my own personality, I can only imagine what it's doing to the people out there that don't even know any better, that are just taking in hormones left and right like they think it's nothing, like it's not going to affect them. Oh my God, it affects people in such a negative way. Because and I'm not eating anything way out of whack. Yeah, I'm eating, like I am craving, like I ate a cupcake this morning with my coffee. Yesterday I had a cupcake or something. So I'm definitely, I'm not going overboard. I'm eating like a little bit of the sugar stuff, which I don't normally eat. But since being on my period right now, and I'm still bleeding, and the stuff is coming. It's like, so, and it reminds me when I first got. I remember the first day I got my period. I remember the first day. I'm gonna just real quick say hello. Okay. The first day I got my period, and I remember all this. And I was 13 years old at Miller Junior High in San Jose, California, and it was all this just clotting of this blood, and it was like this big, large, jelly-like material coming out. Totally gross. I'm not saying it's what's happening right now, but every single time I go to the restroom, all this blood and all this stuff that's there at the bottom of the toilet, I'm like, oh my God. But that's, and and I know that I'm going through a healing symptom. I know that my reproductive system is going through something that it hadn't gone through before. And so I'm just riding this, and I know it's changing some of my serotonin levels. I know it's changing dopamine levels. I know it's changing different biochemistries, and I'm fine with it. I'm just, it's just a trip, because I could see how this could debilitate somebody in the matrix. And then when their hormone levels are dropping or something's going on, then they go and take an upper or some other type of drug to then try to counter the imbalance. And then that's why we have such, mutated people, because when you are trying to manipulate your hormones because you're not aware that nutrition and other things are what you really need to be taking, that is why we have such layers and layers and layers of mutations in the population, because people don't know how to utilize nutrition to balance their hormones out. They're taking hormone replacement therapy. They're taking all the different pills, powders, and supplements that do manipulate their hormones in some way, and it keeps them way even more out of whack. So yeah, they may still be able to function, maybe still be able to go to work every day. They maybe still be able to carry a practice that they're doing. Yeah, they're still able to pay bills, but their body is now totally just like getting mutated, or it's aging and the cells are degrading, and then their mind is degrading and their body is degrading. And, and if their mind isn't degrading, their body is degrading because of the massive amounts of hormones that are at a major imbalance. So, this makes complete sense of why I was suffering so much, because of such a hormonal imbalance, and then not knowing how to deal with it, and then doing all of these different holistic and allopathic practices that are even just, compounding the issue. So yeah, this weekend, and today is Tuesday, completely eye-opening, because I'm looking at my personality completely, like, I'm not saying it's changed like for the bad, but I can see a difference. It's a noticeable difference. And so this is part of the healing process. Hey, Janie, because I'm in the right context. I'm not taking in massive amounts of antibiotics out there. I'm not taking hormone replacement therapy out there. I'm not taking all of the different drugs and pills, powders, and supplements. I'm going through a healing process with nutrition. So I know exactly what's going on. I'm not worried about it. I'm just noticing it and then taking it to the extreme by looking at the population out there that's not even on jelly juice, who are taking all the different supplements and the pills and the powders and the prescription drugs. And I know exactly what they're going through, and they're going through it on an exponential level, considering that they have no idea that they can absorb mass amounts of nutrition. So they're all manipulating their hormones out there in such a bad way. And that's why you see all this crazy stuff in the news. Why you see these policemen are dealing with idiots out there. And they're really not idiots in a way that they mean to. They're just in a major hormonal imbalance. I mean, mental illness, criminal activity, obesity, cancer disease, and chronic illness is a sign of major hormonal imbalance. So me being, I was, so like on point the last, month or so, 2 months. And then as soon as my period hit, it was a complete change in just my energy levels and my thought process. I mean, Jason probably could hardly recognize me on Sunday when I was trying to cook for him and I burned the potatoes. And I was just like, Jason, I'm not thinking with all 4 cylinders or whatever the hell I have. I'm not thinking correctly. The hormones are clouding my mind. He's just like, oh my God, I mean, it was a change. It was a trip. I couldn't even believe myself. I mean, I'm trying to maintain what I had the last, month, and then all of a sudden things changed on Saturday and Sunday. It's a trip. It's a real major trip. So, I mean, I got to drink a bunch of my juice today to counter this, because it's a trip, and I know what's going on. So, when my period stops, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go really balls to the wall, and we'll just see one day, maybe I won't get my period anymore because I'll be 100% healthy because finally my reproductive system finally was able to be repaired. Because that was the biggest thing. That was the biggest thing, was my reproductive system. Some of you have major issues in other systems of your body that need to be addressed. And so, that's going to be your plague and your major healing thing. Because there's a lot of different systems that do get affected because of that one system that's so out of whack. Remember, it's a domino effect. Everything is connected. Nothing is a standalone. Your heart is not separate from your liver. If your liver is messed up, your heart is going to get affected. If not a little bit, then a lot down the road. I mean, your body is able to find ways to compensate for that weakness in your liver, so your heart is not going to shut down. But how long can your body compensate for deficiencies before then other things break down, and then your heart breaks down, or your lungs break down, or other systems that are connected? Of course, every single system is connected. But just from watching some of the testimonies, that when people are going through a healing process, the body will find alternative ways to keep you alive while you're healing. The body finds alternative ways to keep you alive even when you're in the matrix and you're utilizing some foreign object for a certain amount of time. Because only so long can you harbor foreign objects in your body before the body finally does shut down on you, because you've kept your body at a very low immune state, so that way it can deal with those foreign objects. And then when your immune system is so low, then all of a sudden all the different pathogens and things come to surface, as well as whatever you've been exposed to out there hits you even harder because you have such a low functioning immune system. I mean, that's how come transplant patients are able to survive maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years if they're lucky, with that foreign object in their body, because their immune system is low enough to keep it in there. But when you have a low function immune system, you are susceptible to every single thing out there. A cold could kill a person if you have a very low function immune system. So, that's why just, be aware of your different healing process. Understand it, embrace it. Don't be scared if you're in the right context with Jilly Juice, because it's just your body letting you know that it's working on this part of your system. And me feeling these weird serotonin levels drop and then raise and drop and raise is because my body is going through the fluctuations. I don't even know what normal is at this point. But I have a feeling that this experience right now with this period, that was a surprise to me, considering what I was dealing with this last month, because I've been on this major, amazing energetic trajectory. It was so foreign to me. It was a trip. So I know that I'm going through a healing symptom, and maybe this is what a relative normal person who gets their period in our society deals with, and why it is that we have people who are able to accomplish great things in the matrix relative to expectation. Why it is that we have high-level lawyers, that are doing amazing, that have great big houses, completely, successful in their career, because their hormones didn't take them down every month. Their hormone levels were enough to keep them engaged and not completely just throw their life away or impact their life. But there's other issues that they had to deal with, that they used drugs or something else to manage them, right? I could only imagine, because I've never had that. I've never had to where I felt like I was so even to where I can go and accomplish major things over a long period of time. Me doing this protocol and staying with Jilly Juice for 2 years is a major accomplishment for me, because my hormones before would never allow me to stay with something long enough, because it was always a battle that I always had to get out of because of my hormones were getting in the way. So it was like, I never experienced that before. So that's why I was always just like, man, I really wish I could have been that person that stayed with something that didn't have a health issue that kept impacting their trajectory. Because just this weekend showed me exactly what I dealt with in the matrix before Jilly Juice. Trying to get as much as I can get it, in 2 weeks before my hormones would just take me down and have me crawl out of that hole every single month. So, this was definitely a sobering reminder. My hormones were a sobering reminder this weekend of what people go through on a massive scale, and why some people can accomplish so much because they don't have that imbalance, and while others are struggling, committing suicide because they don't have a handle on their hormones, and they're so out of whack, and they're so depressed, and they're not meeting expectations. And they got all the crappy DNA that the mother had, and then their brothers and sisters had the best DNA, and you feel bad for these people because they don't know how to keep a balance, and why, and it's so I get it. It's a trip. So this is super eye-opening for me, and it's a weird look at my past as far as my hormones are concerned, because it is a reminder of where I was. And I don't feel as bad like I did back when I was PMDD, where I'm sitting there, because I'm not tired. I mean, I'm feeling low energy. Believe me, don't get me wrong. I'm feeling low energy. And, I'm craving the sugar and stuff like that. But I don't have the constipation. I don't have the hair triggers. I'm still thinking and feeling on definitely a different level than I was. But I do notice even the slight changes right now in my pristine body is magnified. But, when you're so mutated, in the matrix, and you have slight hormonal changes, people don't really notice too much because they're already mutated. So they're already having so many other issues that it's just more of the same. Or they think, oh yeah, I don't know, it's in my family. It runs in my family. Oh, I'm just, things are coming to the surface now. Not that they're saying it that way, but there are people who will justify why it is that they're having other breakdowns in other parts of their systems. They'll go to the doctor, and the doctor will diagnose them with, oh yeah, you may have a hint of this. Here, take this. Or your naturopath says, oh, you're deficient in this vitamin, so take this mineral or something. And that's where then it keeps going downhill from there. So yeah, it's definitely a trip. It's definitely a trip. Hold on a second. Oh, okay. I see an angry face. I want to delete that person, but it's only Janie. Okay. Janie, don't be alarming me this way. I don't like trolls on my page, but I know you're not a troll, so. All right. I don't know if you heard that because I didn't have my thingy on. All right. So, yeah, I wanted to just record this feeling because no matter what state that I'm in, whatever it is, not state as in country, but state as in just mental state, physical state, I want to keep track of this live diary so that way you guys know what it is that you'll be dealing with. Now, obviously, I'm at a different level of healing because I'm on this for 3 years, going on 3 years. So I've reversed most of my issues that I've dealt with. And so now what I'm shooting for is amenorrhea. I'm shooting to not have my period anymore because that would be a sign that my body is 100% healthy and it doesn't need to drop seeds to procreate to carry this human species forward because we're on our way to extinction. Because the body doesn't know that there's other humans out there that are procreating. So if they see that this body is dying or on a death trajectory, it's going to drop seeds. And that's why menstruation happens. That's why reproduction happens, to keep the extinction from happening. Okay. So right now I'm shooting for that. I was hoping that it was going to happen last month because I have a very different energy level, a different hormonal state last month that was like, I would say, a whole new world that I dealt with. And I'm like, is this the new normal? Because if this is a new normal, I can handle it. And even with my period happening and I'm seeing this hormonal fluctuation, it definitely is nowhere near what I dealt with 2 years ago. The only difference is there's a slight, energy level dip and a little bit of mental fog because I was trying to cook on Saturday and I burned stuff and I wasn't thinking clearly. So right there was definitely an example of the hormones clouding the mind, which is why, people need to, when you're healing, you need to rest. You need to allow your body to go through the stages. Don't overexert yourself. Don't overcompensate, when you're in the right context and you're taking in mass amounts of nutrients, deal with whatever is going on because that is how you're going to face it and wrestle with it and win over it. And that way you don't have to deal with that later on. Because I'm not supposed to feel sick. A body that is super, super reinforced with the nutrition working the way it's supposed to should never, ever feel sick. The only reason why people do feel sick is because they've come into a contact with a pathogen the body doesn't recognize, and it has to build antibodies or otherwise inflammation to fight against that pathogen and then regenerate the cells that cause that mutation. Because whenever you get exposed to pathogens your body doesn't recognize, it causes a mutation. That's why the vaccine industry, that's why, that is such a fallacy, because what they're doing is they're purposely giving you pathogens to cause mutations to then induce antibodies and say, well, now we'll create an immunity. Well, that's great. Do we need to be immune to begin with? Probably in this society, because we have people who are very immunocompromised. So you give them a little bit of a pathogen, it builds up antibodies. So if they do get exposed to something out there that's super, super strong, it's not going to take them down as hard. But still, they already sustain that mutation from that initial introduction, no matter how weak or inactivated that virus or pathogen is. So, the body is not supposed to be sick. If we didn't introduce any pathogens and we just had whatever stuff out there that's from pollution and whatever stuff out there is from exhaust or from any type of heavy metals, I guess pollution, right? Contaminants, that would be, the body does build an immunity. Yeah, you may get exposed to some of these pathogens. Your body does take a hit in some way, but it does, regenerate. If you are reinforcing your body with nutrients, then it will regenerate those cells. And so that way you're not stuck in a mutated state from that initial introduction, and then you'll be strong. But right now, we are introducing pathogens left and right, and nobody is reinforcing the nutrition to then rebuild those damaged cells. And so now we have people who have been exposed to all these pathogens who are now walking mutations. Okay, so right now, well, not right now, but the reason why I figured out the whole thing with reproduction is because feeling sick shouldn't be, and the reason why, and the reason, the whole thing with menstruation and reproduction and all that stuff has to do with mutations and pathogens and the death trajectory. So I still have mutations in my body. And there's some that I'm probably not even aware of, right? And that's why menstruation was always being triggered. Now, those of you who are so mutated, who triggered menopause, well, you have a long way to go to get to the point of where I'm at, right? So if you're in menopause, you got to be peeling back the layers of mutations where you get your period, which is still a sign of mutations, right? And then you stop your period, but you still have to deal with, for you to even get to the point of where you want to stop your period because of nutrition, you have got to reverse all of those mutations. And that's a huge hurdle for some of you who are way far gone. Some of you are completely obese, overweight, you're aging, you look like you're aging the matrix. You have skin issues, you have mental issues, you have so many other issues, and then you're compounding it with cannabis and supplements and pills and prescription drugs and herbs and vinegars and all these things that are so trendy. So for you to get to the point of where you're considering amenorrhea, you have a long way to go. So you really have to understand my information, seriously, to be able to get through that healing process, because you may have, all 11 different systems completely mutated. And that is going to be, stages of healing relative to how much you're drinking of my juice. So right now, I know that being sick and feeling sick and all of that is not the way the body is supposed to feel when it is 100% healthy. So, which means that menses is a sign of sickness, because you're not supposed to feel sick unless you are coming upon pathogens your body doesn't recognize. And that's why you see the symptoms. Symptoms is a sign of the body trying to heal from that exposure. And our society has been treating symptoms the completely wrong way. And it shows in the population. The mutations are so pronounced in the population. It's insane. But, you can't tell a person, very hard, since I'm aware of what's going on, and I get it. And it does seem, it's like, I can see a person feeling this way, thinking that this is who they are. I know right now the way my hormones are is not who I am. It's just the fluctuation of the hormones that I'm dealing with that's causing a little bit of the different energy, some behavior changes, nothing too drastic, but I know this is not who I am. Those of you who are so mutated think that this is who you are. You are your mutation. No, you're not. Your body's mutated, but it's been normal for you that this is what you've adopted as who you are, and you can't seem to get out of that because you've never known anything but what you feel every single day. So your decision-making ability is based upon your mutations and your hormonal imbalances. So your decisions every day, what you do for a job, okay? Every single decision that you make, every single choice that you make is based upon your biochemistry. And some of your biochemistries are completely cattywampus. Some of your biochemistries are so imbalanced that you can't possibly make a really good choice for humanity. Maybe for you, but remember, in our society, everybody's self-righteous and everybody is selfish. It's about, survival of the fittest, that who can, follow orders. And then there's that reward system, Pavlov's dogs, right? That's our society. You do this, X and Y, you'll get, you do X, Y, and Z, you'll get A, B, and C. That's how our society is run. It is about positive and negative reinforcement. So now, we have to look at our bodies and where we want to go based upon the right context, not by this reward system that's out there in the matrix, whether it's academia or in the jobs, but by actual nutrition to understand your biochemistry on a very different level, not on the reward system based upon the matrix, but on your what you understand about your body and the role of pain and the healing, and then what you see as a possibility when it comes to like immortality or something, right? Which I never really did introduce early on because that was not where I was at. I was still trying to deal with all of my mutations. Immortality was so far from any realm of possibility because I still had PMDD issues. I still had, other health issues that I had to get through before I even considered that. That's why I didn't even consider spirituality for a while. That is why some people couldn't understand why I wasn't talking about spirituality. Because, now, we understand that it's the body, mind, and the spirit, right? You get your body right, and then you get your mind right, then you start having access to the spirituality world. So it doesn't surprise me the fact that I didn't really discover spirituality in that sense until very, very later on. Because I had to get my body right for me to even get my mind right. For me to get my mind right, then that's when I had access to the spirit. That's the pineal gland. That's the antenna that allows you to get help from the universe in dealing with some of the issues that you really can't, that you don't really have access to yet, as far as the solutions. Because really the answers are inside of you, but if your gut and your body is all messed up, then you're getting a very distorted answer to your questions. You may be talking to all your parasites, not talking to the higher power, which is you. So, that's why all of my discoveries happened in stages. It wasn't like I knew that it was a body, mind, and spirit way back 2 years ago. Oh, hell no. I had to go through the stages. I had to go through the journey. It's a journey of self-discovery on a massive scale that you guys could totally, tap into as well, but on a different level, because some of you have a lot more mutations than I did. So your journey is going to be a lot longer. I got lucky that my journey was this long for 2 years. I mean, I only had PMDD. Some of you have major cancer. Some of you have major obesity issues. Some of you have major issues that are going to take a few years relative to how much you're drinking. And some of you hardly have any issues. And so when you go through this process, you're going to find your body bounce back like almost probably within a year. Some of you are young, like in your 20s. Yeah, you may have received vaccines, but your immune system was strong enough to be able to counter them and not completely, or your lifestyle was able to repair the damage from those vaccines. So it didn't affect you. Yes, you're immune to that disease now, but you didn't sustain those mutations. So you're doing great. So you're not going to have such a long journey like others who are really, and those people may be way too far gone that are really, really way behind the 8 ball. And if you're in hospice, then yeah, that's going to be a struggle. Because for you to even tap into the spiritual side, you got to get your body right and got to get your mind right. So I can't imagine anybody that is in hospice right now really tapping into the spirit side. Okay, so just understand that this is going to be a journey. You saw how the journey was for me, and this is the prototype of this journey because we're dealing with a universal context of nutrition. And that you will see yourself evolve and devolve and program and reprogram and deprogram. I mean, you're going to watch everything. You're going to watch. It's going to be a type of time travel, past, present, and future. And so, we definitely are embarking on some new times that we must be open to, not get caught up in the activism. Okay, I mean, there's awareness and then there's looping in the same conversation that doesn't give you any return on your investment. It's all about balance. And if you're going to be an activist, give people a way out. Don't just drop a BOMB without any type of saying, hey, and don't be saying, okay, well, your way out is like cannabis, or your way out is pills, powders, and supplements. That's not a way out. Look what happened to the people who are doing herbs and cannabis and pills, powders, and supplements. They're all dead, and not everybody was suicided. Okay, some people actually died from malfunctions in their body because of their practices, because they took so many supplements, because they took so much cannabis. Look at Rick Simpson. He's not dead yet, but he is steadily aging. His body is degrading. So you don't want to give people a way out with cannabis, because that's not a way out. Okay, a way out means that you're not afraid of death at all because you know how to reinforce nutrition. Death will not be something as an option in your life unless it's something that's way out of your control, like a plane falling on you. Okay, which statistically, how many planes fall just from the sky and land on your house or just fall out of nowhere, right? No, we have people in our society that are relatively healthy enough. Now, could I fly a plane? I'm sure I could, but do I want to? No. Back then when I was going into the military, they did tests on me and I didn't have the depth perception because I do have some eye issues that I'm dealing with right now and watching that healing process. And I do have a lazy eye that I'm sure you may have seen here and there throughout my transmissions. So, but there are some people that have really great, eye vision. They have, they're able to function and do things in our society despite their mutations. Their mutations that they have are not impacting their ability to do a specific job. Okay, and if it does find out that someone is not able to perform at the level that they should, then they get rid of them and they find new blood. All these colleges that are being plucked, the military uses experiments using, injecting the right DNA in people and stuff. Yeah, I mean, they're creating super soldiers. They're creating all types of different strengths in our society. So I feel bad for those that have the bad lottery in life where they have the crappy DNA and it's going to take them a while to get over it. There are families with generations of crappy DNA in their bloodline. Not saying that they're stuck with it, but they have to find a way to reverse it. And the way is nutrition, but strategic nutrition, not just any nutrition, not just eating vegan and vegetarian. It's strategic nutrition and then dealing with the pain and the healing and then riding it all out and then seeing, how that's going to look like and being open to this info. And some people's brains are not working correctly, so they're not going to be able to understand the information that I have, and they won't have access to this. And it's already apparent. I see it all the time. So there are some people that are too far gone that, were bestowed a horrible gift, a curse onto their genetic line. And their family, their line is dying off. So, their kids are going to be only good for service type industry jobs because there are already behavior problems because they can't sit still long enough to study something long enough to be able to then get into that career field, or they'll go into the military and become cannon fodder for the US. One of the two. That was what was my that was my future when I joined the military because I couldn't see myself doing anything else. I was so out of whack. So the military was my way because there was nothing else. And then I realized that wasn't the place either for me. So I was on a journey in my 20s. Oh, it was such a journey. And the reason why I know so much about people and different lifestyles because I've experienced so many different parts of the country, lived in different parts of the country. I traveled here and there, but I didn't stay stuck in my socioeconomic area. I didn't stay stuck in Silicon Valley because that right there is a bubble. People don't know reality, real reality, when you're stuck in Silicon Valley in Northern California. That's not reality. When you actually move to a place where it's like people are struggling, totally different way of looking at stuff, you start understanding the human condition when you see outside of your little bubble that you live in. Then you start understanding how humanity operates. Then you start seeing the different things. And that's all data that you don't necessarily know what to do with, but it's data. So then later on, when you're doing something different, and then you realize, oh my God, why is it that the people that are in the middle of America are so much more mutated than people on the coast? And then you start seeing, okay, about money and their access to resources and all the different experimental stuff that may, take away wrinkles or allow you, buy you 10 years because you've killed off this cancer, but you're still aging inside, and why people who are in middle America don't have the money to buy those resources and why they're so much more mutated. It makes sense. I get it. But that I didn't make those connections when I was living in Mississippi or living in middle America. Right? But then later on, when I started doing other things, all of that data that I experienced in my 20s all came back to me. The data from when I was at landmark education when I was 19 all came back to me when it needed to. Okay, so every single experience that you have is data for when you finally get to a point where you're trying now to like take your life and take humanity in a different direction. So, you know, all the things that I've been studying, all the things that I've written about, all the things that I've put in my book, you'll do the research on that, and then you'll look at your own life and you'll start seeing making the connection. You'll see the patterns, and it's going to make sense to you. And if you are well-traveled, you'll understand why it is that this town is a lot more mutated than this town. Farzan Rasuli, tell them to go buy my book. They need to buy my book. You can't sell something that you don't fully understand yourself, okay? It is about nutrition. And you have to understand the positive and negative elements. So buy my first book, read it, right? Understand, you know, the science behind my information. And it's not going to be obvious. I'm not going to say, well, Jilly Juice can reverse the aging process. I'm not making those types of claims, but I'm giving people the information that the body has the ability to reverse the aging process under the right conditions. The body has the ability to regrow limbs and organs and anything that they weren't born with under the right conditions, because there is a blueprint to the human body that people ignore. And since mutations are so prevalent, people have gotten away from the blueprint and they are celebrating their mutations. So we don't even know what normal is anymore, but we know relative normal is 2 arms, 2 legs, 11 different systems, a heart, you know, 2 kidneys, all of that. So you have to go buy the book, read it to understand. And then there's about positive and negative elements. There's the elemental composition of the human body. There is, you know, the functions of all of your different systems. Okay, so you have to understand the role of nutrition. When a baby is developing in the womb, do you give that baby cannabis to develop, or you give that baby nutrition? What do you give a baby? You give the baby mother's milk, right? Well, when someone's degenerating like you, Farzan, like me before the protocol, what did we need? We didn't need mother's milk, but guess what? The second best closest thing to mother's milk. Oh, it's a fermented drink that is pre-digested. What's in mother's milk? It is nutrients, it is minerals, it is vitamins, it is enzymes, it is good bacteria. Oh, what's in fermented cabbage and kale? Well, first of all, it's a cruciferous vegetable chock full of nutrients, right? Then you break it down, right, with the salt, because salt has the energizing force, it has the minerals, it has, you know, all of that, right? The electrolytes. Then you have the water as the carrier force. And so that's so when things are fermented, it is fermented down to a pre-digested state, which means it's easier absorption. Your body doesn't have to work hard to break it down. No different than a baby. When a baby is trying to develop itself, you don't feed a baby a salad. You don't feed baby whole carrots. They don't have the teeth to chew it up to break it down, and their system isn't developed enough to be able to break it down, to be able to get access to the nutrition. So guess what? It has to feed on mother's milk because mother's milk has all the vitamins and nutrition from the mother's body. Okay? So when you're doing the Jilly Juice, that is like mother's milk. It is broken down for you, and you're getting the good bacteria. You're getting lactobacillus. Lactobacillus is cancer's mortal enemy. It is candida's mortal enemy. That's called a probiotic. But not all probiotics are created equal. You don't want to be fermenting sugar or yeast or vinegar or fruit, because that all feeds candida. It's alcohol. Alcohol has never been a source of nutrition in any environment. There's religious and societal, you know, expectations around alcohol and traditions around it, but doesn't mean that it's good for you. Okay, so you have to understand why it is that Jilly Juice is like so amazing, because it is nutrition that your body, who is already malfunctioned, doesn't have to break down. As soon as it goes through your lips, you are absorbing the nutrients. The salt is the energizing force. We need salt. When you go to a hospital because you're dehydrated and you're trying to get stabilized, what do they give people in their IV bags? They give them these saline solutions that has dextrose, it has water, and it has electrolytes. That's what they give them. That's why people, when they go to the hospital and they have these emergencies and they're, you know, so they're unstable in their house because they're not taking in nutrients or any type of electrolytes, and they go to the hospital to get stabilized, and the family wonders why. Why is it that my brother or sister goes to the hospital every single time, they get stabilized, they come home, and then everything goes to shit again. Yeah, because they're giving them electrolytes in the hospital. That's how they're able to save the day. That's what you pay for. That's like the thousands and thousands of dollars people pay for, is for somebody to be that hero, and the hospital is that hero, but they don't tell you how to proactively give yourself electrolytes in a way that makes sense. No, they'll be the one to save the day if your body is well enough to be able to have the day saved. Some people are too far gone that even electrolytes are not going to work on them when they're that far gone. Or this hospital doesn't do that kind of practice where they're like, hey, we're going to give you guys electrolytes and that'll be your only therapy. No, they start doing all these other experimental stuff. They do immunotherapies. They do other types of crap. And then the person steadily gets worse and worse. And then finally, then they say, okay, go home and go die at home. So, so I understand the role of, it's not just salt. People say, oh yeah, salt's so great, which it is. But it's the combination of what the salt is being paired with. Salt water alone is not the answer. If that were the case in all of these soul type therapies, the saltwater therapies would be the end all be all. No, it's what the salt is paired with. The type of salt, for one, pink Himalayan salt, what it's paired with the water, because water is salt's balancing force, and then the nutrition, and then the fermentation process. It's taken all of those three worlds, the probiotic world, the water world, and the nutrition world and the salt world. Okay, and putting those three things together. And that's why it's a powerhouse of a major protocol that is working. And of course we know that the hospitals are biggest drug dealers, of course. But here's the thing, Farzan, there are so many ignorant people that don't want to take care of themselves. There are so many people that don't want to take nutrition, and what they want is a drug, right? So when you have so many people who are ignorant, who don't want to take care of themselves, do not want to take nutrition in the way that makes sense, and they don't know how, they want the drug, they want to stop the pain, they want the drug. Guess what? When you ask for something on the market, somebody's going to fulfill that need. So Farzan, if you didn't understand my information, and say you never came across my information, and you want a drug, guess what? Someone's going to fulfill that need of your want. And then they know that you're going to pay for it, right? So they're not going to turn away money. So it's not the hospital's fault to be the drug dealers. It's not George Bush's fault. It's not, the market only fulfills the needs based upon the ignorance or the education of the population. So you educate the population, guess what? They're not going to be clamoring for all the drugs. There won't be a need for it. There won't be a market for it. But there are still people who don't want to take care of themselves. There are people who want to do drugs. Look at the cannabis world. Look at me even dropping seeds in the cannabis, comment lines. I say, hey, it's strategic nutrition. It's not drug. I put hugs, not drugs, right? Because I'm being a little bit, not catty, but I'm being a little bit funny, right? Hugs, not drugs. And they're just like, oh, hugs after drugs, right? They're making jokes. But they're like, oh, and then they start going into their diatribe of how, cannabis does this, this, and this. I'm like, you wouldn't feed a baby when it's developing cannabis. Then why would you feed a person who is breaking down in the system a drug that you wouldn't feed a baby? Because when you are degenerating, you need nutrition, not just vegan stuff. You need strategic nutrition. That's what my book is there for. It tells you why it is that fermentation is the way to go, but it's a right fermentation. You got to tell your friends, get my book. Okay? So you would never feed a baby drugs to be able to develop. You should never, ever feed a person who is degenerating drugs. It just doesn't make sense. And that's how you have to approach this, Farzan. Because anything, because even the turmeric is a drug. Anything that you see in the holistic allopathic world to manage whatever diseases is a drug. When you're using food as a drug, it's a drug. When you eat food as food, and then it will then hold you accountable for the mistakes that you've made violating the immune system, you will deal with that. And then you'll be taking food forever. You need food. Everybody needs food. You cannot overdose on nutrition, but you can overdose on turmeric. You can overdose on cannabis. you can overdose on this. And people say, oh yeah, nobody's died from cannabis. BS. Everybody that's on cannabis right now, Rick Simpson is slowly dying. And when he dies, he would have died from cannabis being that predominant thing. Now, we can't say correlation is causation. We can say correlation is not causation. But, you know, I mean, if you were taking cannabis and that is actively, and that's then yeah, you know, you can make that safe assumption that, you know, cannabis was definitely a factor. But then no different than Bruce Wilmot, and they're saying, you know, but Bruce Wilmot stopped my protocol 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks prior to him passing away, went back and took drugs in the system. And that probably what did him in was the fact that he got off the protocol, because the fact that he was in pain was saying that his body was repairing. But the fact that he got off it because the pain was too much told me that the things that he turned to before he passed away was what did him in. But there's so many factors that contributed to him already, you know, being in hospice, pancreatic cancer, you know, methadone use, to whatever practices he had prior to him falling ill. Okay. So, I mean, when people say people have not died from cannabis, well, at this point, it's a factor in a lot of people's lives that are, you know, dying on cancer, disease, and chronic illness, because it bought you 2 or 3 years, because it disappeared a symptom, because cancer and tumors are a symptom. Not all tumors are malignant. Some tumors are just benign. It's just, you know, negative elements coagulating, but it hasn't turned cancerous. Right? But when you see skin tags and you see tumors and you see boils and you see, you know, things like growths, like warts, those are all negative. Those are all, you know, cells that have been mutated that the body is trying to separate itself. So that's why you see them hanging off the skin. My dog right now is having skin tags coming up because her body is getting rid of the pathogens in her body and it's turning into skin tags, and then they're falling off, right? So that's why not all tumors and skin tags and warts and moles are bad, but that tells you that there are changes in your cells, and those are red flags. So just because you've taken cannabis and you've disappeared them, burned them off, doesn't mean that you took care of the root cause, because your practices are still going to then contribute and create more tumors and more skin tags and more warts. And then it will eventually be malignant because you let time pass by without making any significant changes to get to the root cause of why it is those warts are developing, why it is you have these skin conditions. So that, you know, so the holistic allopathic world does not understand what these flags are. They want to basically rip out the dashboard so that way you never know where you are. So then one day you just die and you never know the reason why, because you just took away the voice of your body. And that's what the holistic and the allopathic world are doing. They're taking away the dashboard so you never see the idiot. So the idiot lights never come on. And that's what's so scary about this whole thing with legalizing marijuana. Everyone who's going to be, you know, who's already mutated, they're going to be in a zombie-like state, not knowing at all where they're at, until one day something major happens. And then they're too far gone. And they're going to keep taking the marijuana, take a different strain, until they completely destroy themselves. And that's a scary thought. So that's why I've been like, you know, screaming and crying and trying to tell you guys, get away from the marijuana. I mean, I'm seeing people that said, oh yeah, you know, I like your drink, I love this. And then they're going to their naturopathic. Said, oh, my naturopathic gave me, you know, they did a test and I'm deficient in this or I'm doing that. And they've been on my Facebook and in my group for like the last couple of years, right? Anyone that I see that I know that says that they've been following me or doing my protocol and whatever, and they're advertising some kind of pill, powder, supplement, or naturopathic or cannabis, I immediately delete. I block. I don't even, you know, because that to me is like such a slap in the face, for one. Number two, they're promoting, you know, this death process in the system. I mean, and so, yeah, I have been blocking and deleting anyone that I know that has been active on my Facebook. And they're promoting all of these pills, powder, and supplements. I'm done with them. They can go expire in the system. And it's almost like, you know, I'm giving them a death sentence, but not really, because it's their choice. They had access to my information. transformation, they chose to go back to the dark side. Well, then stay in the dark side. And then when things go awry, then you're trying to figure out where Jillian is, and she's already you. Now you're on your own. But my website is still there. You still get the book. You can still send us the receipt, and then we can still get you in the discussion forum. But you're not going to have access to my Facebook, and I won't have to see your, your trader-ism, your trader-like behavior. So, that's how I've been dealing with the two-faced people on my Facebook. So it's unfortunate, but that's just the way of the world. People want to take the easy way out. So wow, definitely got my energy back a little bit. But I just wanted to just give you an update on my hormone levels and what I've been experiencing. And so that way you guys are not afraid when you do go through this healing process. Some of you are just starting and you're going to, maybe you'll have a headache right away. Maybe you'll have a skin issue come up, right away. Don't worry about it. There are ways to manage those symptoms using my juice. And I have it in my book. It says, hey, if you have skin issues that come up, you can use my juice on it. If you have really massive amounts of pain, you can use my juice on your head or something or wherever. Love you too, Janie. And then sometimes people have to still transition, from the allopathic holistic, and they may need to take a pain pill because the pain is just too great and they have to function, because you still got to do your daily stuff. You still got to go to work. You still got to take care of your kids and your husband and take the garbage out and do the dishes and feed your dog or something. So, you must, why is people in Canada calling me? What the hell? But yeah, I mean, you still got to maintain your, your daily stuff, but give yourself time to heal as well. Don't try to work through all of that if you don't have to. If you do, then I understand. And do what you got to do, but your body does need to heal. Your body does need to heal, and give it time to do that. Okay, so that is my advice to all of you. Yes, Susan. Yes, headache. Yeah, that's my husband too. My husband, when he does the Jilly Juice, his headaches, the headache comes up, and it sucks. Yeah, but that's your brain finally getting its brains back. So just, and I had massive headache too. I mean, I had where it was a crushing headache, and I did use a little bit of peppermint oil on a washcloth and just put it over my head, because it was just the only thing that really just kept me, and I didn't use my juice so much on it. I think also I didn't have my juice available to me. That's the reason why, or I probably would have used my juice. So, there are alternatives if you don't have juice around and you didn't, you weren't proactive enough because you're dealing with healing symptoms to get juice made. So it's still brewing, but what do you do in the meantime while it's brewing and you have a massive headache? Well, I did use peppermint oil and water, and just put it on my forehead when I had a massive headache, like a migraine type, and then I just laid in bed and just slept. So, there are ways that you can still use the allopathic holistic, but just know that that's not your intent. But we understand transition. Okay? So everything that you do is going to be okay. Just make sure the juice is the predominant thing in your life. Okay? And then you watch your body change. You watch your biochemistry go through its different roller coaster fluctuations. All right, I'm going to go, but you guys have an amazing day. Love you, love you, love you. And yeah, all right. Talk to you soon. Bye.